This is a true crime podcast. It contains adult themes and content and may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
When a guard would stop and talk to you, you used to stand back and you would yell so people could hear what you were saying to that guard as they walked by or within the vicinity.
But he knew what a convict was going to do before they thought of it themselves. He'd just been around that long, and he was tough.
They'd find Sprocky in about every conceivable place you could imagine, which we would, of course, dump.
They'd wait until everybody was locked up, and he would open his door and run down to cell one and get a bugler can full of Sprocky and take it back to his cells.
She had a kind of a hypnotic power. There were a great many wild cats around the penitentiary, and most people couldn't get near them. But she would stand in the doorway of the cell house and say, "Kitty, kitty, kitty," and those cats would go to her.
Welcome back, folks, to Behind Gray Walls, the podcast about the men and women who worked, lived, and served time at the Idaho State Penitentiary. I'm one of your hosts, Samuel, coming to you from the administration building, along with your host, Anthony.
Hello, everybody.
For today's episode, we have a very special guest, the one, the only, the incredible Kathy Hill. Kathy, how are you doing on this fine, rainy September day?
I'm pretty good, a little apprehensive. It's been a while since I talked about the book, but well, I'm ready.
Well, we're excited to have you. Now, Kathy Deinhardt Hill might just be the researcher we reference the most often on the show. She's the author of Hanged, A History of Idaho's Execution, a book that details all 26 executions by hanging that took place in Idaho between 1864 and 1957. Not only does she cover the 10 executions carried out here on site, but many of the other stories connect back to the prison's history in one way or another. This book is not only an outstanding resource for historical research, but it also creates a compelling narrative that guides readers through some of the darkest chapters in Idaho's history. We've been looking forward to this interview for years, and we are thrilled to finally welcome Kathy to the show.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was raised in northern Idaho and went to the University of Idaho.
Okay.
And I was looking for a job, so I started driving south, and I ran into McCall, and I thought, I could live here. Yeah. And they had a job opening at their high school, and the newspaper had a job opening that I could work, and I took them both, and I've been there ever since.
Oh, wow. I love McCall. Oh,
yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah, it's been a great place to live. It's changed a lot, but it's a great place to live.
Do you get out of town during like the winter?
No.
No. Yeah, okay.
I really love all four seasons that are up there. It's winters get long.
Yeah. Sure.
But spring's going to come, and you just need to get out. You need to hike in the summer, or bike, and you need to ski in the winter. Yeah. And I love the four seasons. I love it there. So.
I can't go wrong with McCall.
No.
Never. As a journalist, teacher, and published author, what interested you in becoming a writer?
I can't tell you when I didn't want to be a writer. I mean, from the time I was little. Mm-hmm. My dad bought me this little hand crank printing machine so I made a community newspaper. It was like one teeny tiny sheet of paper, and I would print it out every week. And I just loved it. And then my high school job, I worked for the local newspaper, and they made me do a lot of grunt work for a long time. Back then it was linotypes and metals, it was old school. And then the first writing assignment was just, here, try to write this obituary. And I did, and I was hooked. And, then I had to get a real job. I mean, I had, and you had to do that. But I always wanted to write, always. And so when I finally got to the stage in my teaching career where I had some extra time for whatever reason, I just got back into the writing bug, and that's what I did. And continued to work for the newspaper and that kind of stuff, yeah.
This is an audio podcast, but Kathy, you don't have, black makeup and, black dyed hair. What drove you to want to write about Idaho's executions?
Well, I was actually working on the Deadshot Reed book. I was finishing that. I was doing the research for that book. And I'd come across stories. And I thought, man, I might probably make a good story. And then I got done with the Deadshot Reed book, and I was hunting around, and I woke up one day and said, you ought to go back to that, pursue that.
Yeah. Wait, can you explain the Deadshot Reed book?
Oh, there's a guy, his name was William Reed. Okay. His family lived in McCall. In fact, his granddaughter had come to me and asked me if I would write the story.
That's cool.
But he was from Lewiston, and he got into a lot of trouble with the law. I mean, he ended up on the South Fork of the Salmon River, had like a passel of kids, and then killed a guy named George Crassell down on the river. Crassell Ranger Station's named after George Crassell. It was just a really amazing story. He was an amazing, interesting person. His wife, who he married at 13, was just tougher than nails. So it just made for a really, really good story.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into that.
Yeah. Can people still get this book somewhere?
They're in the libraries. Everything's out of print now, but they're all in the libraries. It was a good book. The Deadshot Reed book I thought was a good book.
That sounds like a perfect book to read on the banks of the Bayhead there in McCall. Yeah,
it's on my read list for
sure.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good story.
Yeah.
So, so that's and I've always been I wandered towards cemeteries. And I think it was you I told I found the Bacon's grave in the old Boise cemetery. It's like, whoa. And so you don't have to wear black to be interested in the stories of those people.
Yeah. So you just finished this Deadshot Reed book, and it's just I've got all of this other research looking at these.
I'd been thinking about it, and then at first it was really broad. I'm going to write about everybody who was hanged in Idaho, and then I thought, well, God, how am I going to ever find that out? And then I did some online searching and found out there were 26, and I thought that's really doable.
Right.
That's and so then that's how I got started.
Nice.
So
what was your very first one? Do you remember?
I'm curious about that.
So the way I did it is I had all 26, and I really didn't have any order at that point in time. I knew I didn't want to go chronological. I was for sure I didn't want to do that. So I started with Noah Arnold. And I can't remember the other ones after, what order they went in after that, but I would choose 3 at a time to make it manageable.
Yeah.
And so I would do online research, which would then lead to more research. Then online newspapers were coming on back then, and I read that. And then once I got enough for all 3 guys, I thought, okay, I can head down to the Boise Historical Library. And then I'd just spend, as many days as I needed to find that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd go home and I'd organize it and think about, okay, what am I going to, how am I going to do this? And if I needed more, I'd come back to Boise. Mm-hmm. And then I would actually write them because I didn't want to forget. Because I knew it was going to take me a while to get the research. And if you read Noah Arnold and then you read one of the later ones, like Snowden was one of the later ones, there's a difference. I put some really mundane detail in Noah Arnold that you don't really need to know the story. But over the writing, I kind of got rid of some of that stuff. And stick more with the story rather than the details. Well, there's still details, but the mundane details.
I struggle with that. What do I cut? Everything's important, And,
yeah. I mean, I thought the list of the jurors, and I had a really good friend who he'd read one. I really trusted him. He'd read the story, and he goes, "I didn't need to know that." So I listed all the jurors. He goes, unless there was somebody important in the jury, nobody needs to know that. They're not going to remember that.
Yeah, that's great. I kind of do the same thing when I walk my dogs with my wife. I'll kind of recount, like, okay, this is the podcast episode I'm going to do, and I'll tell her the story, and she's like, so why'd you give me all that backup history on Boise County before? I'm like, well, I wanted you to know about gold, and just tell the story. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that's smart. It's always good to have that person. Somebody who tells you, and they're honest. Yeah,
you don't need that.
So you gathered newspapers and you gathered a lot of historical documents. Did you mostly do that through the Historical Society?
Yeah. Look, prison files were there. That was where I went first. Mm-hmm. And then the county courts. If I could find a court transcript, oh man, that was just like gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some you couldn't, especially the ones, that didn't go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court usually had the court records, but before that, then it was hard. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I went to court cases, and then the county records. County records sometimes were pretty disappointing because they would tell you that here was a court date and this is what, and this was who was here, but then they wouldn't tell you what happened. So then you had to dig and try to find newspapers that had the stories. And then you had to, kind of, not always trust the newspapers because they were biased. And then in some cases, like especially in southeastern Idaho, there weren't even newspapers.
Yeah.
I mean, you really had to dig. And the farther back we went in time, the more difficult it became to find the stuff. I mean, the Magruder murders were almost impossible.
Sure.
Because we weren't even a state. We kind of weren't even a territory, I mean, we weren't for sure a state, but yeah, so but the State Historical Society was really good. And like I said, when I found a transcript, I thought I'd found gold. Yeah. So that was really nice. And then when the Idaho Statesman when the Boise Public Library started putting the Idaho Statesman online, with a searchable engine, that was huge too.
Yeah.
It was really huge. So
I know. Just when I started here, I think they had up until it was like 1920-ish or so digitized, and then over the years they were just adding more and more. So then I had the 30s, and I was like, "Whoa, look at all these details!" And the 40s, and then the 50s. I remember looking at Raymond Snowden's crime scene photos when they put the 50s on, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh, this is opening up so many worlds." It's amazing. And just in the since COVID, so many things, so many collections have been digitized, physical collections and textile collections.
Yeah, all the McCall newspapers online now from way back when.
Wow.
It's so handy and so helpful as a researcher.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I'm curious, about your pitfalls, difficulties that you had in some of this research. Did you ask for any physical representations within the collection or anything like that?
No, it was all written, all public, stuff that was public record kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's where I got it all. So so the pitfalls were sometimes I just couldn't find anything. Yeah. And so sometimes, especially in the old stories, it was kind of conjecture of what happened. You kind of had to read, and I think there's a few times where I said, it might have been this way, but we're not sure. And so it was this way. But that was, and it was really disappointing. Sometimes you get their prison file and you'd open it up and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Oh, just an intake. Or
dang it,
maybe,
And then some were just loaded. Mm-hmm. Some were, with detailed information. And so it just depended. But luckily, at least after about 1875, there was newspaper stories, and so I could find stuff.
Yeah. We actually have Magruder's weights and scale.
Oh yeah.
And so I was just curious if when you were working on that story, if they had that in the collection at that time, or
no, I didn't see any of that stuff.
It joined our collection. Oh.
And that was one of the hardest stories to write by far.
Yeah.
Just because of a lack of information. Mm-hmm. And you got Hill Beachy's story, and the book that Lad Hamilton had written about it wasn't really fact. I mean, it was based on fact, but it wasn't really. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't take it at face value. Mm-hmm. And then you get the Montana laws. I mean, the Montana stuff going on, and that was a really elaborate crime, in a really elaborate story. Chasing them down the river, to catch them and bring them back. I know it's like, it was almost, it was a wild story for that, especially in the 1860s.
Right.
So early.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So starting in 1864, going all the way to 1957, 26 executions. That's a lot of different stories. Did you notice trends or patterns or anything?
All the people who were executed, for the most part, some of them were just bad guys, But there was always this hint of desperation, this hint of poverty. And with the women, it was obsession, but that was then it came desperation. With the exception, as the closer we got to 1957, the more the people just kind of became bad people. But in those early ones, almost everybody did something out of desperation or just because. And there was probably some, mental illness. I think Rice was mentally ill.
Yeah.
And probably a couple of these other guys, but he definitely had some mental issues. But yeah, they just were desperate. And that was the one recurring theme to me that I found in some of these guys that, God, don't do it,
Right.
But they did. That kind of answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a recurring theme. And then depending on where or what they were caught and tried, it just seemed like it depended on who your judge was or who your prosecuting attorney was. That I thought that has a big, like you said earlier, that has a big effect on what happens to you. So
there seems to be a wide variety of different sentences at this time, and the jury and the judge both had a lot of power. You can commit the same crime in one county and another county, and depending on the time and who was in charge of making that decision could change the outcome dramatically.
Yeah. Did you know that when Jerko was executed, there was supposed to be another guy executed the same day? He was from Valley County. Yeah. And his murder was worse. He waited for the guy to show up in his barn. And when he walked in, he shot him. And then they let him go.
Yeah. Just...
And why? Well, because Jerko was different. He wooden leg and a bad, accent.
Well, and with Jerko too, the skull fracture.
Yeah.
That's a powerful piece of that story, that there was like compelling evidence, post-mortem autopsy evidence to suggest that he did suffer from mental illness.
And there were people there who said he was threatened. His wife was, threatened. He was threatened. I mean, Anyway, where you were had a lot to do with it. I was really surprised with Noah Arnold. They just didn't string him up in Sandpoint.
Oh,
that surprised the heck out of me. So, but it was a good story. Let's pretend we're going to string you up and then send you to Boise. Yeah.
Are there any that impacted you? I don't know about you, but I get emotionally kind of tied, and I feel like I kind of know these guys when you're looking at this person's mugshot as you're going through this record. There's this kind of empathy that I start to get for everybody that served time here. Did you feel a sense for any particular that you felt kind of close to?
Yeah, I really felt like Jerko. I really felt, especially when I saw how hard his lawyers, once he got to Boise, worked. I mean, they believed him wholeheartedly. And I thought he got a really raw deal. And then I didn't find out about the other guy till later. After I wrote the book, I thought, whoa. I really had an affinity to Bond.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not that he didn't, I mean, he did something bad. And I think that's what I had a kid ask me, don't you think you're glorifying these guys? And I tried not to. But he did something bad, but so did Jenny.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he had the best last words. I'm guilty of some, but not all.
Yeah.
I mean, I just felt bad for him. And I don't know, and I thought that prosecutor really turned Jenny against him, and she was just looking for a way out.
Right.
Anyway, so that one affected me. George Pearson affected me because I just think that, if he shot the guy in the back, the guy deserved it. I mean, he'd been beating Nell and he'd been harassing him. And so I thought that was much more a second-degree murder or something. And he was that whole story was so colorful. And then I felt bad for Troy Powell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I felt really bad for him. I didn't have any sympathy for Walrath. But I really felt that Powell was one of those kids. Again, he was kind of desperate. He had a wife. He's got a kid. Just couldn't get out of poverty. Just couldn't make it.
Right.
And then
friend.
Yeah, and then went with some guy who was a monster, and I really felt that bugged me. That really bugged me.
All those stories of him being kind of like a stand-up guy for this neighborhood grocer, it affected me, like digging into that story a lot.
Yeah, he could have had he found somebody to lead him down another path. He would have been a good person.
Totally.
I think. I mean, and again, that was part of the problem with writing the book. Mm-hmm. When you didn't have, it's like me sitting here with you two. I mean, you seem like great guys, but I don't know anything about you.
Right.
I don't know what your life is like once you walk out the door. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like that with these characters. I know the story of what they did, but that's about it. And when you did searches trying to find their backgrounds, a lot of them used aliases. Mm-hmm. A lot of them, I mean, you can't find some of them in any census record. Yeah. Nothing. You can't find a parent. You can't find. And so when I tell the story, it's like, this is a big leap of faith that I think I know who these guys are.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And so that was tough. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
James Connors, like that, just roaming, vagabond.
No clue who he is. And who was the other? I forget their names. He was the one who killed the guy in Boise, and they were both bums, and they both lived down by the river. And they walked by each other, and he stabbed him.
Yeah, and he was executed in Boise, but not at the penitentiary.
Yeah.
That was a bizarre one because that was state. We were a state institution, but it was before the 1899 legislation that all executions had to take place on site. So it was bizarre to me that they would do a Boise execution, but not at the penitentiary.
Yeah. But these guys, you just don't know who they were.
Yeah.
And you really don't know. I mean, like I said, Bond seemed like a nice guy. Powell seemed like he could have been a nice guy. Mm-hmm. So Jerko was a hard worker. He worked 3 jobs.
Gosh, yeah. Going out to the mine, every
worked as a barber, and he must have made a name for himself at the bar because they called it John's Place. I mean, he had a following. So anyway.
Yeah. We could just be a fly on the wall in that barber shop. And just...
Did the work ever get heavy? Of course it did get heavy, but for me, there are times when I'm researching and I'll hit a point, especially after reading autopsies, where I'll be like, okay, I need to walk away. Or reading about Noah Arnold's funeral out in the graveyard and the little gathering there. I'll hit moments in my research where I'll need to take a step away. And I wonder if you felt like that, because I don't cover as exclusively dark material as you would have had to have done to do this book. Yeah,
the Snowden one really bothered me. That's why I saved it for the end, because it was just so vicious and just senseless. Yeah. But what I tried to do and I guess my journalism career kind of helps that, is you just look at the facts. You focus on what happened, the who, the what, the when. Yeah. You didn't really know why most of the time, but that's what you focused on. In that, there were times I woke up, in the middle of the night, but it didn't really. Just the Snowden one was the absolute worst. And then the guy in Moscow who killed the girl.
Fred Seward.
Yeah, Fred Seward. That was kind of, he was just kind of screwed up guy. But that one bothered me a little bit too. And then he tried to shoot himself and it didn't work. And that was kind of heavy.
The mugshot of that one tells such a hard story. Oof.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I have to tell you, when it took 5 years, I thought about it every day, but it never got to the point where I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. So, because I was just telling stories, and the facts of the stories tended to be, not pleasant, but you had to tell them. So
did any families of victims, or anybody reach out to you after this was published?
The only one I've talked to was here at the prison, and she was a niece of Troy Powell, who came to visit the night before his execution.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was. That it still just sent me chills, gave me chills. But she thanked me because I made him not look like a monster.
Yeah.
So I thought that was I didn't want to make him look like. I just wanted to tell the story.
Right.
And so, but yeah, that when she came, it was out here in the yard. I had just given the talk, and she came up to me, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is wild."
Yeah.
And it was, and I'm glad she did. And I think it helped her too. So, yeah, you don't want to glorify him. You don't want to, you know.
Yeah.
It just happened. It was just part of history. It's what we did
Exactly.
to people who did these things.
And everything that we do, we need to be thinking about the victim and what is the impact on the family, even if it's several generations away. Like everything we do, you know, it could be reopening old wounds, but it could also be healing. And I think you tell these stories so well that I think, you know, you're really sensitive to that. So I was just curious if while you were doing this research, if that was, you know, at front of mind, or if you were just telling stories and you're just naturally
just you know, what, where, when, and why.
Yeah.
It was beat into my head when I was in school.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a researcher, it's very common to find stuff that surprises you. And it's like a hard thing to try and convey to people who haven't spent a lot of time in that field, just because you might know the end result. You might know, especially with these stories, what happens in the end. But sometimes when you research them, you find just twists and turns you didn't expect. So did you find stuff that shocked you, that you found unexpected while doing this research?
I think that the most that I found that was unexpected was some of the prosecutors and the judges surprised me the most. That they could do what they did. There was almost like some of them to me they weren't dishonest, but they weren't, I mean, they were after a conviction and they didn't care what they did, even if the conviction maybe shouldn't have happened, you know, or the hanging shouldn't have happened. Like I said, I really thought that Jerko's, that guy, when he called him a communist, that was just out of line. It had nothing to do with the story, except to get a jury against him. To get, you know, that to me, that really bothered me. Go ahead.
And at least according to the FBI, he wasn't a communist.
Exactly.
He was not communist. There was just this, you know, he's European. And
well, but he threw it out there.
Yeah.
And that was the bad. Once you throw it out there.
Yeah.
And I don't think they probably ever retracted that. You know, I never found anything where they retracted that. And I thought that the Powell and Walworth judge, when he wouldn't let them bring in, that surprised me, when they wouldn't let him bring in their prison record from Oregon and how they were so abused in Oregon. That shocked me a little bit. The Bond one, when they took him out and pretended they were going to hang him so he would tell him where his partner was, you know. But I don't think anything really shocked me as far as, you know, I knew I was telling these horrible stories, and there was gonna be some bad stuff, but so when I got to the criminal part of it, I was hoping. I mean, that's what surprised me, how it happened. And I thought for the most part they did a good job, but there were a couple of them that didn't. I didn't think so.
Being, you know, a scholar of Idaho capital punishment, have you ever been requested, you know, your subject matter, you know, understanding? Have you been requested by the Department of Corrections or anybody else for reference about contemporary, you know,
I actually got a phone call earlier when they were just talking about the firing squad. Yeah. Because he was going to send me some stuff, and then they passed the law, and it was like moot, I guess. But he wanted to know just information about the hanging and you know, like, did you know how much that kind of stuff costs, and what was the reaction to it? And I said, I'll tell you everything I know, and just send me what you want me to, you know, the questions. And then I think it was like 4 days later, they already passed the law. Now we're going to shoot people.
Yeah.
So.
Do you follow death row and sentencing?
No.
Right now? Okay.
No. I just know when they passed the law, I couldn't believe it. I don't know if you even care about this, but when I started this book, I thought the death penalty was an okay thing. I mean, there are people who do really bad things, and they don't have any redeeming qualities, and we just need to probably put an end to their life. But after doing this book, I don't think that anymore. I mean, I think there still are people who have no redeeming qualities and who we probably should execute, but there's so many mistakes made. There's so many things going on behind the scenes that the average person doesn't know, that who's getting manipulated, who's not, who's getting a fair shake, who's not, that in order to make it fair, you just don't do it. Yeah. I didn't think that till I wrote this book.
Yeah, that was my next question. It was just like, what are your thoughts on capital punishment?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy. I mean, you were in the thick of all of this research, and people are so complex, and the judicial system is so complex. It's so interesting, like you were talking about David Hoagland and John Jerko, that how did David Hoagland get off shooting this other farmer in the back, just sitting there waiting, where John Jerko, has been threatened, and there are all these witnesses that say, Vandermark was going to kill him and had a gun and was trying to hire people to poison him and all these different things. And I don't want to be a judge. How difficult.
Well, and then
Hoagland
had people, he was a white farmer and he lived there a while and he had all this support from his neighbors. And Jerko had a wooden leg and talked with an accent and a foreign wife, and and there you go.
An outsider.
Yeah.
How's the reception been overall for the book? Have you done speaking engagements?
I was with the Idaho Humanities Council, so I traveled the state at first, and they were all really, really well received. And again, I'd always get the same question: why did you choose this?
Yeah.
And it was always, because they're good. They're stories, and they're good stories. Right. It's been really, really. My friends, they know that I like this kind of dark side, and so they thought it fits you. But one of the best things I like, and it's the high school English teachers. So in their sophomore year, it's either their sophomore or junior year, they have to learn how to prove their point and find sources and be able to back up their point and that kind of stuff. And they use this book. And they pick out certain stories. They can pick out any stories they want to read, but the teacher picks out certain stories. And then I come to class and I talk about the writing process and why I did this and why I did that, and how do you go about proving your point, or how do you go about presenting your information so that you prove your point. And it's really fun. The kids, sometimes the kids just sit there and stare at you, but other times they ask really good questions. And I think the other thing that I really like, it's not any literary masterpiece, but everybody can read it. And 15, 16-year-old reluctant readers love it.
Oh yeah.
And so they're reading it and they're doing their work. And to me, that's kind of cool. That the teacher doesn't have to force them, and they can answer questions and ask questions about what they're reading. And I think that's really good.
I love that you put in, history, things surrounding what's going on in the community. Like, it's everything that we strive for when we do the podcast episodes, that we want to give some context, some history. I'd like to use the old pen history, true crime history, as kind of the gummy candy to actually, you're learning a lot of history too, and I think you do this really well in the book.
Like, who would have known Moscow was, this really conservative, you're not going to do anything bad in our town, or you're going to, who would have thought that at the turn of the century? I wouldn't have. And you learn a lot about, like in Bond's book, downtown Boise history, and and Thatcher. Walk down the streets of Thatcher looking for that house.
Totally,
it's not there anymore, but
And then Fred Bond and Jenny going to movies.
Yeah.
Like, that shocked me. I know that's such a simple detail, but I've like imagining nightlife in Boise in 1904. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. And that she could go into a hardware store and buy a girl gun.
Yeah.
There's a couple of stories that I think would make great screenplays. I think Bond's would make a great screenplay. Yes. I think George Pearson's would make a great Western, almost comedy. I mean, we've seen some Westerns that are dark but also pretty funny. But I mean, Johnny Behind the Rocks and Banjo Nell, how can you not love those characters?
It feels like a Western.
Yeah.
It reads like a Western. So later this season, we're doing an episode about Jack Campbell, who's one of the executioners with the George Pearson.
Oh, really?
And
how'd you find out all this stuff?
Well, and he later went on. He was a deputy at the time, and then he went on to be the warden here. And so we have this like very direct tie, but just on the other side of that situation. And same with MacDonald. So MacDonald was executed by John Springer, who was also the warden here in 1890. And John Springer's career as a sheriff was all focused on nonviolence. That was his big theme as a sheriff. And so it is a very ethical dilemma that he's put in, where he doesn't even carry a gun, and now he's forced to put a man to death. And he was open about that. He admitted he had mixed feelings about it.
Yeah. These guys who, the execution in Idaho now, they say, do we just pull the trigger? It's like, I don't think you realize how not easy that should be. That should be hard, So.
Anthony's saying he doesn't want to be a judge. I don't want to be an executioner.
Yeah.
Man. Oh. Yeah. I mean, it's part of our system. It's part of the potential punishment that anyone can receive for, taking somebody else's life.
Yeah. I agree.
So you talked a little bit about how the public's reacted, and every day we hear positive things about the book. I've been told by fans of the podcast that they're sit and they read the book to each other because they're still waiting for the audiobook version of it. But of course, how did your family and friends, what did they make of this while you were in that process?
My husband was really supportive.
Nice.
Yeah, they were, they were all really supportive. They didn't, nobody, looked at me like, this is too weird for you to do. They knew that I loved history. They knew that I loved to write, and they knew I loved research. If I had to pick my favorite thing of the whole book, it's doing the research. I love the research.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's the best.
It's like a thrill. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it is. Yeah, I mean, it's like you find something that's like, whoa. Yeah. So they were just incredibly supportive, and they kept, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And it took a long time. It was like 5 years.
Wow.
So then when it came out, I was pretty excited. The same friend who told me that the Arnold story said you got too much stuff in there. He was the same one who he read it and he says, but they all the stories end the same. It was like, what do you expect? But I'm hoping he was a little facetious about it. But I can't say enough about the support that my friends gave me for this book, and people here, the people at the library, they were really supportive. Every time they saw me coming, they just open the door and bring out that, because I would tell them ahead of time what I needed.
Yeah,
they were very good. So
that's great. Are you working on anything right now?
I want to. I just can't seem to get focused. I don't know. Started on a South Fork project, the history of the homesteads at the South Fork. And I got one almost done, and then started on the second one. And the same thing, I started out really big, and I've been narrowing it. But I don't know. I'll think of something. Yeah. I really want to. I think I'm really drifting right now. And I think if I could just dig my... I know this sounds dumb, but COVID... just did some weird stuff. And I was in the middle of the research when COVID hit, and then I just stopped. Yeah. And I've had a hard time getting back. And that's been, 3 or 4 years now, and I still haven't. I think about it, but I say, you need to do that, and I don't. So.
Well, if you ever want to write little segments for the podcast,
we'd have you on at any point.
Anytime. We know you are a fantastic researcher, and with so many extra new resources. I can only imagine what if you ever did another edition of Hanged with extended research, the extra details version.
The stuff that you've uncovered. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and one of the things you've donated to our staff is your research files, and I use those extensively, and I use your handwritten notes. I use your handwritten notes a lot, especially when I'm trying to find stuff. And another part that's hard to kind of sometimes explain to the public is just how complicated these stories are. And one thing I love about the Hanged book is just how well you concentrate the material, and how you can take something like the MacDonald story that is just so all over the place and make it into a readable narrative, because often the research is not.
Yeah.
Often the research, you just get more confused, and it is so hard. And like when I'm working on a tough project, I will have like papers out to like map the direction and the timeline. The timeline for some of these stories is so hard to follow. And you do such a good job of telling a straightforward story that, like you said, that anyone could read just start to finish and wouldn't be confused.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. One of the things I did when I wrote, and I tell the kids this too, when you're writing something long like a research paper, I said, you can't write all day. Your writing starts to suffer. Your brain gets tired. And you start to repeat yourself, and you get lost. So just set aside a time to write, and then when you're done writing, kind of quit at a logical place, and then write yourself notes. Now I need to talk about this. Yeah. I need to find this. And have like 5 or 6 things that when you sit down the next day, boom, that's what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And that really helped me stay focused.
Yeah.
So I
That's
knew,
great.
Yeah, rather than having to, go back, now what am I going to do? So I knew what I was going to do. So that was helpful. And I hope that helps the kids too.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Forgive me if this is an unfair question, but were there lessons you learned? Or were there things you took from the Hain book that you found applicable to your own life, or just how you viewed things?
Since I am a horribly judgmental person sometimes, but one of them was don't judge.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, they couldn't help it. They couldn't help it. They just got caught in a bad situation. But yeah, don't be quite so judgmental, because it's easy to look at somebody who committed a horrible crime and not automatically go, well, he deserves to die or he deserves to rot in jail. And you need to look at what really happened. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure if I'd have been reading Troy Powell and Wallace's story when it happened, I would have been going, shoot those guys,
Yeah.
Get rid of those guys. And then after the research, it's a totally different idea. So I think, don't judge.
Yeah.
And the other thing, one of the last things that was on there was about why was this important to history. I want to mention that. I think it's really important that the people in Idaho know that for as unpopulated, spread out, dispersed as Idaho was during those first 40 years, it did a good job at trying to have justice. Mm-hmm. Those guys had trials. They waited for judges.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job. And there were some really, really outstanding legal people, like Bora and Holly, and those guys who served as lawyers and who served as judges and stuff. So I think Idaho should be proud of its history, that in the West, with the exception of Wyoming, we executed fewer people than any other state. Mm-hmm. That's a credit to the state, I think.
Yeah.
But I wish we'd learned lessons from that the reasons for those crimes when people got hanged are still here, and we haven't addressed those. We haven't addressed desperation, poverty, mental illness, and that's why we still have issues. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. And I think people need to know that we did a good job. We need to do better now. We didn't learn anything.
That sounds like a great place to end this.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Well, we have this tradition. We ask, if I were to say, do your own time, how would you respond to that?
If I was going to do my own time, I would just take a nice big walk in the woods. Is that what you mean?
Take a nice big walk in the woods?
That'd be a good way to spend your time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in McCall.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is nothing better.
Oh, yeah. I like it. I like it.
Do your own time. Yeah. Being outside. No matter how bad things are, if you can go outside, within minutes, it's better.
Amen to that. I am with you. Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Well, yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is something we've for years talked about having you on the show. Or like, this is the season we have to do it.
Yeah.
And so We're very appreciative.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. I was nervous, but I'm glad I did it.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Well, you don't come off as nervous at all.
Okay.
You're natural, so thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.
All right, everybody. Well, do your own time.
Do your own number.
We'll see you next week.
If you enjoyed Behind Gray Walls, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Not only do we get to hear your feedback about the show, but it helps others find us as well. If you're interested in finding out more about the podcast and to see mugshots of the inmates featured in today's episode, follow our Facebook group at Behind Gray Walls Podcast. And we have a podcast Instagram as well. You can find us on Instagram at Behind Gray Walls Pod.